has been offering service desk solutions for years with great effect. We spent a fair amount of time talking to our clients about differences between help desk and service desk. What is the difference in your mind?
Well, the biggest difference between help desk and service desk really is the level of support that you're implementing, the processes that you're implementing, and best practices. The biggest difference between service desk and help desk, a help desk is really nothing more than a call center where you have level one type support that is just somebody that can understand what it is you're trying to solve and then escalate it to somebody that can help and enter it into a ticketing system. Whereas service desk really is based on the ITIL, the infrastructure technology library framework. Really is the best practice framework for service desk. It means that there is a high level of quality assurance and best practices from a process standpoint, as well as a service desk will have a higher level type engineer that is receiving and answering your calls and resolving them. A help desk doesn't really have any type of resolution rates, whereas a service desk, in DYOPATH's case, typically we will resolve the issue 86% of the time on your first call. So those are the main differences between service desk and help desk.
Yeah, thanks, Chuck. James, love to get your feedback.
Yeah, really the main, from my perspective, the main difference between, help desk and service desk is, I always like to say help desk is kind of like the old way of looking at things from a store. You're storing the data, they're capturing it, and then they're forwarding it on, right? So it's not really about focused on necessarily the service behind the scenes. So it's really focused on capturing the data and then forwarding it on. From a service desk perspective, really the main key component is the service desk, or an ITIL aligned service desk, is really meant to be built around the services of the company. So what type of applications, how does the business work, what are those items that are critical, and what do we need to do to service the end users appropriately based on what is being presented to the client and what they're using. So really the service desk is more ingrained into the way the business functions, where a help desk is literally there to take a call and forward it on to other individuals.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. And so for attendees, we generally use service desk to encompass our remote end user support platform, and it's done via our service desk out of Houston, which is 24/7 by 365. And we'll get into the details of that in a little bit and advantages. But at the end of the day, I think Chuck hit it on the head. Our goal is to resolve tickets as quickly as we can. Certainly response times are important. The resolution timeframes are critical to keeping your highly valued employees up and operational and working. So great. So James, this one's for you. Clients often choose to contract DYOPATH for remote monitoring and management services, or not, via our NOC at the same time as service desk. Can you talk a little bit about what the benefit of combining those services are, service desk with RMM?
Yeah, definitely. So, I would say some of the main benefits of combining the service desk with the RMM, or remote monitoring and management, kind of goes back to what I was saying about ITIL, right? So, our service desk and NOC are ITIL aligned, and really what that means is it's really there to provide, the maximum amount of value. It's there to provide the structure, the best practices, the defined roles and responsibilities, the service level agreements associated with that, right? It's also there to build out the kind of what we call as business objects too, so that when we are servicing a client, we have the service desk taking the call, and if they can't escalate or if they can't resolve it and they need to escalate, there's a tight integration between that team as well, and deep knowledge of the client, so that they can escalate to those teams, fairly quick, and then from there for them to resolve those issues. So not having the two together, we can do that, but definitely it's a major benefit for clients because we're able to closely align those. We have great visibility into what's going on from a service desk perspective, and then what's going on from a remote monitoring and management perspective. And there's a lot of data sharing between the two as well to understand really what's going on with the client. The other major thing I would say is there's some major efficiencies gained, right? So if you're not, escalating out to kind of a third party or somewhere else, or other areas, you're kind of having to adopt the processes and things like that of another group or another team. So with having both of them combined, you have the efficiencies to have the same process, the same procedures, the same method of troubleshooting, right? All those things are at the fingertips of the technicians from a service desk and in the NOC.
Thanks, Chuck. How about you?
Yeah, James summed it up really well. I don't have a whole lot to add to that other than going back to your original comments, Matt, about outsourcing. Clients want one throat to choke. And when you've got a closely aligned service desk with a NOC for all the benefits that James just mentioned, there's no finger pointing, right? And there's a very, very tightly integrated partnership there between the two functions. And the other benefit too is that these individuals are literally separated by a pane of glass. And so there's a lot of in-person whiteboard, chalkboard type collaboration that goes on for troubleshooting and brainstorming. If in the event that the service desk has an issue and they are having difficulty resolving an issue, they literally just have to walk on the other side of the pane of the glass, and they can brainstorm with the level 2 engineers who are in our NOC. And then, oh, by the way, our security operations center, which is just another pane of glass away, can also handle any kind of level 3 escalation, security type issues that might come up. So having that tightly integrated service desk with the NOC and the SOC just brings a lot more tightly integrated benefits and less room for anything falling through the cracks.
Yeah, thanks, Chuck. And from my perspective, if you look at one of our taglines, accountable for technology, that's ultimately what you want from a MSP is to be accountable from start to finish on an issue. And I think merging those two services allows us to do that. If you divide support of, let's say, end users and networking or systems or servers, then you might have this disjointed or fractured approach, which would lead to longer resolution timeframes and ultimately lower client satisfaction scores. So we want to be accountable for it, and also have a 360-degree view into the environment, so that, I mean, we're certainly talking about tactical day-to-day support, but we want to inject strategic guidance into the process. And the way to effectively do that is to get this 360-degree view of the environment. So, okay.
Yeah, well said. I would also add too that a major component for service desk, NOC, any solid MSP or any solid internal IT organization should really have a very, very sound change management system and process in place. And so everything that we do at DYOPATH all centers around change management. So even if it's from a service desk standpoint where a patch or an upgrade needs to be made, it needs to absolutely run through any type of change management process and have it run through a change management board to make sure that everything that is done is approved beforehand. And then when you get into the higher level issues around the remote monitoring and management, it's extremely important that everything that is being changed is automatically logged. So through our change management system, not only do we know when changes are being made, we know who made the changes and why they made those changes. And again, that just being accountable for IT, to your point, that just really minimizes the disruption and improves the overall level of customer service.
Yeah, thanks, Chuck. Okay, so this one's for you, so you can keep rolling. There is an age-old debate, as we know, being in the trenches, insourcing versus outsourcing as it relates to end user support. So can you talk a little bit about our client engagement model and the value we can deliver to organizations that decide to outsource service desk to DYOPATH?
Yeah, you know, in your intro, you gave 2 or 3 or 4 of the main reasons why you should outsourcing. Outsourcing is not for everybody, but for most organizations, if you outsource correctly, it can be a huge benefit. And before I get into the actual engagement model, it's really every organization should ask themselves, do we want to be in the IT business, or do we want to be in the business of whatever it is that we do to make money for our shareholders or for our company? And so you really need to answer that question first to find out, because being in the IT business means that you are heavily invested in the infrastructure, all the applications and everything and the support associated with that. So when you start talking about the DYOPATH's client engagement model, it really starts with trying to understand what are those day-to-day routine operational reactionary type activities that happen in IT every single day. They are essential for keeping the lights on, right? Because you got to have access to your systems, you got to have the support you need, but they don't really add a whole lot of business value. They don't add a whole lot of value to helping the end user to improve his or her function or how they conduct their business. And so you find out, you identify those. Some of them could be service desk. It could be the security and network operations center, like we're talking about. It could be your infrastructure support, where you're hosting your infrastructure, whether it's public or private. You identify those functions and you draw a water line and say, let's push those below the water line and let's outsource them to a company like DYOPATH, and then have them run those services, because that's their core business, and we will tightly manage them through very strict service level agreements or SLAs. And so you want to identify what those functions are, push them below the waterline, and outsource them to a company that specializes in that. And then above that waterline, there might be some strategic initiatives or special projects that are really important to the business. It could be a security compliance initiative. It could be a technology upgrade or an ERP or core business application upgrade. That's really where your internal IT should be focusing more of their efforts on, those areas that are adding value to the business. And oh, by the way, if you don't have the manpower, or maybe you lack some expertise in some particular areas, a good MSP like DYOPATH should be able to come in and help from a professional services standpoint, to also help you get those projects implemented correctly and on time and within budget. And so ultimately the goal is we like to say, we want a client's internal IT organization or IT leadership to have a seat at the boardroom table, right? They need to be understanding what the business is doing, focusing on how to position IT to properly support the business and allow those end users to accomplish their end user objectives in the most efficient, cost-effective way that they can. And so by using that waterline approach and outsourcing those functions, you can absolutely properly position IT and have a true IT partnership between the business and the IT function.
Thanks, Chuck. Well said. James, anything to add there?
Yeah, definitely. So, I think one of the biggest things, at least for me, is really at what level of maturity is a client at, right? So that's a big differentiator as well. So when you're going through that client engagement, with DYOPATH, one of the biggest things we ask is, and we assess is the maturity of the current client. And the reason for that is, what is the current need? What is required right now? So do they have the time, not just the staff and the skill set, but do they have the time to build out a service desk or a NOC or a SOC? Do they have a pending audit from a security perspective, right? Like, what are those drivers from the business that are really, are really requiring these type of services? And I think that's also the question that they have to ask themselves is, if I have to have this done within a month or two, and I need all my best practices, I need my policies, I need my procedures, I need all these things, I need to be ITIL, compliant or aligned. That's really when you start to look at, I would say, like an outsourced service desk or something along those lines, because it's also a time factor, and they have to take that in consideration. And two is, how quickly do you want to move up that maturity model? Also, bringing in a service desk, outsourced service desk or not, can help with that, fairly quickly.
Yeah, thanks, James. And Chuck had mentioned, that the day-to-day keeping the lights on tasks, it's, I'd say, reasonably easy to outsource, those things. And candidly, we're built for that, right? So for those organizations where outsourcing is an option and a fit, there's no sense in recreating the wheel, right? I mean, we've been providing IT outsourcing solutions for 5 years now. And so you'll leverage what we've built, the resources that we have, the processes that are in place, the framework that allow us to support, over 100,000 of our clients and users successfully day in, day out. So that's my 2 cents. So James, this one's for you. I think there's this misnomer when outsourcing comes up that, there isn't going to be, maybe collaboration, with internal resources and folks should be concerned about, their position. And that is simply not the case, right? That's not what we're trying to deliver here. So how do we collaborate with our clients' internal resources, executives, folks in IT operations, maybe risk and compliance, to get maximum value out of the IT structure?
Yeah, and great question. So, really at the end of the day, we are trying to be an extension of the organization. So we're not a competitive component, right? We're there to meet us. We're there to kind of serve a specific need, right? So if it's service desk or if it's NOC or security, we are offering these services to, one, help, like I said about a maturity model, is really help the client from an IT maturity perspective, collaborate with them on those type of things, work with them on the best practices, building out the policies and procedures associated with them. At the end of the day, also, we're there to provide that service and really help those individuals, in some of the other IT roles to elevate themselves within the organization, or be able to focus on projects that help the business drive revenue as well. So, one of the biggest things that I see is you kind of see a little bit of contention sometimes, but what we tend to find out is, those individuals get to focus on projects and things within the organization that they would love to work on, right? That really helps drive the business forward. So we can be a catalyst or enabler for that as well. But I mean, at the end of the day, it is a collaboration between internal IT resources, stakeholders, executives. It is not. It's not a we're here to take your job type thing as well. So.
Great. Thanks, James. Chuck, how about you?
Yeah, I agree with James. And matter of factly, there have been many times where we will actually hire a client's internal IT staff, and it just opens up so many more doors of opportunity for he or she to grow because having over 400 customers versus just supporting that one customer, there's so much more room for growth and opportunity in learning and understanding new technologies. And it goes back to what I said earlier too. Our whole goal in life from an outsourcing perspective is to move the client's internal IT organization up the food chain, have a seat at that boardroom table, and really add value to the business. And quite frankly, be seen as adding more value than just watching a server or the network in their day-to-day routine responsibilities.
Great, thanks. And then I guess a few tactical pieces of information to help those of you that are on understand our collaboration process. So, typically we're going to want to establish a cadence call. It could be weekly, it could be monthly. Where we're statusing on ticket history, SLA performance, customer service scores on tickets, and that's all driven by your dedicated client or technical account manager. So that's one area I would say we're very high touch. And then in order to zoom out and help strategically, right, and align the IT operations of the business to business meet goals and objectives of the business, we'll do things like quarterly or biannual strategic review meetings with executive leadership on both sides, right? So we've got really tight alignment from that perspective. And I just want to make a quick comment on CSAT scores. So we poll on every ticket, right? And it's a 1 through 5 rating scale. And candidly, if we score below a 3 out of 5, that lands on the desk of our director of client experience, and then also on the desk of our president, because that could be a teachable moment, right? What was it, a miscommunication? Can we alter the process? Ultimately, we want to be high touch and engage with that end user to make sure that we're driving continual improvement. Okay, so guys, last question, because we're about out of time. So Chuck, for you, can you please explain why we decided to align our service desk and NOC services with the ITIL framework? And before you jump in, I'll just set the table. So for those of you that are uninitiated, ITIL is formerly Information Technology Infrastructure Library, and essentially it's a set of detailed practices of IT activities such as ITSM, IT service management, IT asset management, that focus on aligning IT services with the needs of the business. So when you hear us say ITIL, that's ultimately what we mean. So Chuck, go ahead.
Well, you just explained it. So the reason that we want, so DYOPATH, everything that we have done since the beginning, we've tried to base our service model around best practices, right? Not only best practices, but repeatable best practices as well. So when we decided that we were going to deliver Service Desk and NOC services, we researched in many different types of foundations or best practices out there, and we decided that the ITIL foundation is absolutely the best, and it's a worldwide adopted best practice processes for delivering IT services to customers. And so you can really maximize a value to the business by aligning your processes and services with your business needs. And so when you apply ITIL, you get, as James mentioned earlier, you really get input for process improvements and ultimately helping solve service delivery issues. You also can make sure that, as I talked about earlier, that the whole change management foundation built into ITIL is extremely important from a quality assurance standpoint. And so we wanted to make sure that our service desk, our NOC, and even our SOC were tightly integrated using those ITIL best practices and frameworks for the reasons that I just mentioned.
Great, thanks, Chuck. James.
Yeah, I think it's about five main points, right? The main concepts for ITIL, and Chuck touched on one of them. Really, is delivering the maximum value to customers, right? That's one of their core concepts that aligns with us. And then optimizing resource and capabilities is another concept of theirs, which is we have to do, right, to be efficient in our job, and really to run an efficient service desk and NOC. Other ones are reliable services. So there's a whole function around structuring the services that you have, defining those services to ensure that it is a reliable service and repeatable service. And then defining clear roles and responsibilities for each task within those services as well, and how you operate at the service desk level as well as a NOC. Really think of it more so from like a services organization, and then having the planning, the defined processes, specific goals that the service desk is meeting, and being able to measure those. So those five concepts are really items that truly align with us, and one of the reasons that we wanted to base our services offering from a NOC and service desk perspective to ITIL. So
great, thanks, James. All right, so we're out of time for this session, but please note that we've got 2 other sessions as a follow-up to this one, where we're going to continue to talk about managed services, and it'll be in the same type of format, same guests. So hopefully you guys found this valuable. Again, appreciate the time. We did get a few questions, so when we email out the recording of this session, we'll try to answer those questions as well. But we appreciate everyone's time. Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.